talk a little bit about intuition and how I see it. To me, intuition is an energy, and it's like when we tune in, you know, in that silent space in between everything, we can access color, sound, light, awarenesses, images. So that's when I say intuitive, when I say energy, I'm talking about those places and spaces. Because of my spiritual practice and just my natural inclination for sensitivity and empathic abilities as a child, it's always been with me. So oftentimes maybe you'll hear me say energy, intuition. I just wanted to clear up that's where it's coming from. And I also would like to say, if you don't feel like you're intuitive or it sounds too hard to grasp, because it is a more of an abstract construct and concept. No one really can define it except the self. So, and it's easy to just say intuitive and then not really know what you're talking about. But maybe in some regards it's coming from, energy, emotion, that higher visioning. I mean, and not always, right? It's just that inner knowing, that gut feeling. It could be that simple. But learning to trust those impulses, right? Because even if you were maybe born that way, you might not have always trusted it. And how can we use the energy, emotion, intuition more in our art practice, our creative practice, showing up to life, because it's easy to hide, and I know that all too well. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit about energy and intuition and use mark making and color and shape and line of form as we move forward. And I've made a separate video of me talking about the drum and more about my spiritual practice. And I also just want to say it's really important for me to share that in the work that I do, because that's like where everything is leading me. It's not just art, it's about all expressions. So that's why I always say it's about the expressive nature of being, and that's voice, speaking, written word, movement even, and painting. But we can learn how to use the words as an inroad into painting, and we can learn how to use movement and drive into the expressions into painting. It's all a creation. It's all about creativity, and that's the excitement, and that's what I'm interested in. Where do all of those roads converge and crisscross and intermingle, and then it becomes a party. One big creative dance, and that is exciting. So let's dive into the mark making and see what happens in the process. I'm talking about intuition and energy and emotion because those are my three ingredients to finding freedom in not just in art but in life, right? Because we need to have entry points and access ways and inroads into our awarenesses. Now, really, I just often for me, I'll hear the word yellow and I'll just move towards yellow. But I'm not always thinking I have several yellows near me. But, I just gravitate over to what feels good to go to, that's so it's just like an inroad in. And of course when you're starting, it's never really much, and I'm paying attention to even this, back and forth and up and down movement and how that feels. Now I just like, oh, it'd be fun to mark make. And I'm kind of still feeling that drumming that I did in the other video, if you tuned into that. I'll put it in the links below. Because, you know, that creates an opening. When we engage different sensory practices, we're really going to have an expansive experience for tuning in, even if we don't really understand. Because sometimes just enjoying the moment can create an opening. Or if you've ever had that, like an interesting conversation with a friend, or an unexpected conversation or experience, or, you know, I love to give the example of nature, sunrise, sunset, even those in-between times. The way the shadows are cast, the way the light shines on water, all those like little moments can really create bigger epiphanies inside of us. And sometimes we don't have the words for it, which is totally fine. But the other thing is, if you want to have the words and you're scared, well, that's a different story, right? Because for a long time I was kind of, and sometimes still can be, scared to speak or move in a certain direction because, you know, I don't know what's going to happen if I choose that. So I have a tendency to shut down. I don't know if any of you can relate, but and that's just something I always have to contend with and work through. But and you know, in the artworks too, like making that strange mark could create you, could cause a block, you know, if you haven't done it before, or if you don't know how to do it. It's easier to just like move away from it because it's scarier to have to like face it. But the fun thing is, and the exciting thing is that if you start to like even engage it a little, well, it can start to really open a lot. So I'm paying attention to that. And, you know, I'm having the other practices on their own, and then sometimes combining them like I just did. And that's what I am working towards more and more. But it's easy to just want to maybe shy away from, well, look, I'm putting this silly little image in the picture. But we could judge it, you know, and people are probably going to judge it, and you might even be judging it now. And I'm kind of judging it too. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. But I'm going to do it anyway. You know, because it's just a moment, and we can always have another one. And if I really hated that, I could always paint it out. So that's what it is to pay attention to energy, emotion, intuition. It's like, what do you feel? Where do you feel the impulse? And how do you follow that feeling is the question. And of course, I think it's just how you want to look at it. This is just the way I engage it and what's important to me in my creative process in my life. So I like that this is kind of not a pristine brush. So I'm getting this strange brush strokey mark. The benefits of leaving your brushes behind. So that actually I just picked up from, it was in a thing of water. So it's kind of a dirty brush. And then I'm following that like feeling of like what kind of was created there with this crayon. and kind of moving more into the moment. This fan brush has been kind of separated, so it kind of is creating those like chickeny scratches. Oh. To me, I see like it as an impulse, and like you're conjuring and creating a new world through that intuition, through that awareness. And the new world can be completely unreal. And to me, that's where abstraction is like residing in that space. But there's lots of ways to look at it. It's just, that's what's interesting to me the most too. So I want to encourage you here. There is really no right or wrong. It's just what you want to start moving towards. And well, maybe the external world won't always agree. But that's a good thing, because that probably means you're on to something else entirely. It may be harder to stand beside it at times, but you're gonna feel a lot more freer in the process, and also, I don't know, less acceptable to how it should be, you know, when we often come up with a thing of, when is it done, or is this the right way? Which, I mean, I go over those questions too, and it doesn't always work out, but when you're paying attention to the energy, intuition, and emotion, you start to maybe trust more and have the experience and move on. And then move into another one. Like, well, I would say it's not always easier, but it does get easier. Which I did. Can I say that? I just did. I hope that makes sense. It's just like, you know, you can have a really great day and you can have a really bad day, and it just is all circumstantial. So it's kind of along the same lines of making our marks. But we can always choose to show up to the moment. Access that energy, emotion, and intuition. And just like get curious about what's going on. These are just, you could call them experiments. You call them drawings, I don't know. You could call them expressions. You could call it art. You really could. The choice is yours. I think that's a scary thing. Sometimes it's like not knowing, you know, for ourselves. Yes, can this really be a thing? And sometimes it feels foreign or maybe even taboo at times. But it's kind of doing it anyway. We learn, you know, we learn what we like and what we could put up with. And this is all just like on a small scale, which can build into the work. And it does build into the work. I like to, I sometimes like to, I don't always wear gloves. I like to feel it. I don't know if that's right either. Gonna do one more here. So we just access that energy and intuition and create those openings for that mark to move through that space. Yeah. And it doesn't always have to be pretty. But it can be. And don't they say, oh, beauty is in the eye of the beholder? It's just like learning to let go and move into that flow state. And that's intuition to me too. Because you're just going to choose accordingly to how you're feeling that moment and what's rising within you. And find your shapes. Ooh. Whoops. But that is where I'm going to leave it right here. Put a little graphite on it and call it done. And it's fun to play around with where the emotion, the energy, and the intuition wants to go. And kind of just notice it, because if we come back tomorrow and do the same, well, it won't be the same. We can't create it again. But we build up our own kinetic connection, muscle memory over time the more we work. And that just becomes innate to us. But you can't get there unless you, you know, start to move through it and decide to show up and, you know, start accessing more parts of yourself and build that trust and inner awareness. But it's always possible to show up and start again. So I'm Natalie D'Adamio. Thank you for joining me today on this mark making, energy, intuition, experiment, and expression. And if you're interested in working with me one-to-one, we can always go over everything in detail, you know, privately, if that's easier or something you need. And we can work on all of these things that I'm talking about in the video one-to-one, which creates some more of an intimate container and a safe space to process and start thinking about what does all this really mean for yourself, right? Especially if you have a block or a fear. That's really my specialty in coaching others, helping them come into that authentic expression in all kinds of ways, just because I know the struggle so intimately, and we can all use support from time to time. And if there's always the free stuff here on YouTube, so I'll keep making the videos and keep expanding. I encourage you to keep expanding into all of your expressions. And, you know, let's just keep creating, because that's what brings, you know, life and beauty, even in the brokenness. I mean, that's how we restore ourselves and each other. Thank you for being here.